You're sitting there, the clock is ticking, and you're staring at a chaotic mess of data. We've all been there, right? Academic data reporting is literally one of those topics that strikes fear into the hearts of students and professionals alike. You're handed a complex visual, and suddenly you have to magically transform it into this perfectly structured analytical summary. Honestly, it can feel like trying to decipher an ancient language while a timer just relentlessly counts down in the background. But today, in this explainer, we're going to completely demystify this whole process. We are going to break it down using a single, universal method that works every single time. If you've ever faced one of these complex charts under pressure, you know that exact sense of total wide-eyed panic. The prompt is incredibly strict. You've got to write at least 150 words in about 20 minutes. And you're just staring at this barrage of maps, numbers, colors, shapes, completely overwhelmed by how to even organize your thoughts. It brings up a really massive question. When you're reporting on wildly different types of data, can there really be just one structure for all of it? Well, I'm here to tell you the answer is a resounding yes. Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for this explainer. First, the data reporting challenge. Second, one structure for all. Then we'll put it to the test with 3 case studies: a bookstore map, housing pie charts, and telephone bar charts. Section 1, the data reporting challenge. Which brings us to Section 2, one structure for all. So here it is, the master key. It's a universal 4-part structure that you can apply to literally any data visual thrown your way. Step 1 is your introduction, just simply state what the visual is showing. Step 2 is the overall perspective, the big picture. Step 3 is paragraph 1 of your main body, and step 4 is paragraph 2. That is the whole shebang. Intro, overall, body 1, body 2. We're going to rhythmically repeat this structure throughout the rest of the explainer so you can see just how adaptable it really is. Let's see this in action. Section 3, Case Study, the Bookstore Mac. Take a second to really absorb this raw prompt. We're looking at a bookstore's physical transformation. We have the planimetry of the bookshop from the year 2000 compared directly to the layout as it is right now. Step 1 of our framework, it's practically a freebie. You just write, depicted in the given images are the planimetries of a bookshop in 2000 and at present. Super simple, right? But now we have to extract that big picture. This is where mastering step 2 is absolutely crucial. You do not want to get bogged down in the tiny details right out of the gate. Look at how this sentence perfectly captures the macro change. From an overall perspective, it is immediately evident that there have been many major changes over this period of time, the most impactful of which is the overall redistribution of the central part. Boom! You've instantly identified the most dramatic shift, and you've set a crystal clear stage for your reader. All right, moving into steps 3 and 4 are 2 body paragraphs. Here, we logically divide the analysis. Actually, scratch that. It's more like we spill it chronologically. Paragraph 1 focuses entirely on the year 2000. We point out the 2 large fiction sections and how the central part was strictly dedicated to books with very little space between shelves. Then, paragraph 2 shifts to now. We detail the redistribution of those central shelves, the addition of tables, and that brand new cafe station that totally replaced the nonfiction section. Notice how we're explicitly following the golden rule of data reporting: avoid the repetition of concepts. By splitting the years perfectly, the narrative stays incredibly clean. Let's move to our next data type and see how this builds. Section 4, Case Study, Housing, Pie Charts. Here's our second raw data prompt. We've got pie charts showing the percentage of owned, rented, and social housing in the UK over a 16-year gap comparing 1991 to 2007. Now, when most people see pie charts, their very first instinct is to just robotically list off the percentages. 60% here, 70% there. Don't do that. Let's trust our framework. Step 1 is our intro. Step 2 requires us to zoom out and find that big picture shift. And here is that step 2 beat applied perfectly to proportional data, the most impactful of which being the overall increased number of homes, from 22 to 27 millions in the 16 years shown. Do you see what happened there? Before getting completely lost in the individual slices of the pie, we highlighted the total macro data shift. We anchored the whole report in the reality that the total pool of homes grew significantly. With our perspective locked in, our structural master key effortlessly splits the analysis into steps 3 and 4 again. Paragraph 1 covers 1991, making sure to frame the percentages like the comparatively fewer number of homeowners against that lower total of 22 million. Then, paragraph 2 tackles 2007, isolating those dramatic proportional drops, like the social housing slice shrinking to a truly insignificant 2%. Look at that. We used the exact same 4 steps on shifting proportions, and it worked flawlessly. Let's build up to the grand finale. Section 5, Case Study, Telephone Bar Charts. Give yourself a moment to take in this pretty intimidating bar chart. We are tracking the total minutes in billions of telephone calls in Australia. It's broken down into 3 categories: local, national, and international, and mobiles, mapped out over an 8-year span from 2001 to 2008. Talk about vertical noise, right? It's really easy to panic when you see a prompt like this, but we aren't going to because we have our structure. After a quick introduction, we execute step 2, reinforcing our overall perspective one last time. We scan the data, and what immediately jumps out, the most impactful of which being the significant increase of calls from mobile. We identified that massive, unmistakable red bar growth, representing mobile phone usage over those 7 years. We've effectively tamed all that visual noise by locking onto the dominant narrative. Now, what's really interesting about this case study is how our strategy proves its worth. In our previous examples, we divided our paragraphs by year, but with this much vertical noise, that would be a complete mess. Instead, we divide our paragraphs by color and trend. Paragraph 1 isolates the blue bars, the local calls. It notes they're the highest overall, but highlights a fascinating trend reversal that peaks in 2005. Paragraph 2 groups the yellow and red bars together because they share a similar trend, a gradual and rapid increase that ultimately brings all 3 categories much closer together by 2008. The framework is rigid enough to give you a foundation, but flexible enough to let the narrative flow logically. So, what is the ultimate payoff for trusting this system? The final result is a perfectly structured 161-word academic report. It flawlessly executes an introduction, an overarching perspective, and 2 deeply analytical main body paragraphs. It's well over the 150-word minimum, and it's easily achievable within that 20-minute window. Let's actually listen to how the text for those body paragraphs is fleshed out from our notes. For main body 1, analyzing the blue trend, it smoothly reads, "The graph clearly shows how local telephone calls have been made in the highest amount throughout the 7 years, and that it has a trend reversal starting and finishing the period with 72 billion minutes and a 90 billion peak in 2005. Notice how efficiently it uses specific, descriptive vocabulary like trend reversal while citing exact, impactful data points. And to wrap up the narrative, main body 2 handles the contrasting trends incredibly vividly. It points out that while national and international calls augmented from 38 to 61 billion, mobiles absolutely skyrocketed from 2 to 46 billion. It delivers this knockout final comparison, stating that mobile use in 2008 was nearly 4 times higher than in 2005. It's clear, it's highly analytical, and it's perfectly organized. The results kind of speak for themselves, don't they? We took one simple 4-part master structure and used it to effortlessly decode a spatial map, shifting pie charts, and a highly complex bar chart. By standardizing your approach, you eliminate the panic entirely and maximize your analytical skills, which leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought for this explainer. If this one master framework can decode all of these visual puzzles so easily, what other intimidating academic challenges could you conquer by simply applying a universal structure? The next time you face a ticking clock and a blank page, just remember the 4 steps and start building.